Welcome to this panel discussion on seedling survival. I'm Dr. John Hatcher, Executive Director of the North Carolina Forestry Association. The success of NCFA members and the forest sector as a whole depends on the success of millions of trees planted across the United States. Joining me today are members of the Southern Forestry Nursery Management Cooperative to discuss a few issues landowners are having with seedlings across the Southeast. At this time, I want to welcome the director of the cooperative, Dr. Scott Enebak, and his team, Dr. Ryan Nadel, assistant research professor in the School of Forestry and Wildlife Sciences at Auburn University, and Dr. Tom Starkey, a reforestation consultant with the Southern Forestry Nursery Management Cooperative. Gentlemen, thank you all for taking time out of your day to join us for this discussion.
Good to meet you.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Dr. Enebak, could you please take a moment to tell us more about the co-op, its purpose, and the nurseries that are members?
Oh, certainly. We always like telling our story here at Auburn. The Southern Forestry Nursery Management Cooperative, and we loosely call it the Nursery Co-op, is a research cooperative. And as you mentioned, we're based out of Forestry and Wildlife Sciences at Auburn University. And this cooperative has been in existence since the early 1970s when various industries, state, federal, and private forestry nurseries actually had a small meeting in Auburn. And they came together because they're having some seedling production issues and pretty much said, well, if we pay you an annual fee, can your staff fix these problems? And since then, we've continued to grow and prosper as a research-based cooperative. We have membership that includes all the industrial companies, Westervelt, Rainier, Weyerhaeuser, and many of the states, Georgia, North Carolina, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and most of the private nurseries as well, Arborgen, Meeks, IFCO. And we actually have members from Virginia, all the way south to Florida and west to Oklahoma. And so we do comprise probably about 85% of all the seedlings produced in the southern U.S. Are members of the co-op. And we meet annually to discuss seedling production and survival issues. And I'd like to think that we're problem solvers. So we have these issues and the membership says, can we look at this or we can look at that? And we sit down and we put together experiments and we solve problems.
Dr. Enebak, recently the cooperative sent out a management alert that was titled Plant Seedlings Early as Warmer and Drier Conditions Expected. Could you please take a moment to discuss with us this management alert?
Sure, we'd love to. We need to get this out to as many people as possible. As part of our membership, we have newsletters and research reports that come out about every 6 months. And a couple of years ago, Tom Starkey, who you hear from in a little bit, actually said, we need to have something quicker, more timely. And we decided to call it the management alert. And it's usually a one-page document that we can quickly put together in an afternoon and in our office, and we quickly distribute it to our members and, hey, get this out to your landowners kind of things. And so it's basically like heads up, watch out or be careful. And this particular management alert, we've actually been thinking about for about 3 years now, maybe 4. And this came out of, because one of our tasks is we assist members in trying to identify seedling survival issues after outplanting. And we actually have a program that we put on called DSI, Dead Seedling Investigation, kind of like CSI. And the whole purpose is to try and identify the cause of seedling death or plantation failure. And so over the past 2 or 3 years, we've been receiving a lot of boxes and samples and bags of dead seedlings. And we can't put anything together to suggest that it's an insect or a fungus that's responsible. And the common denominator in many of these plantation failures or seedling mortalities is that they were planted far too late in the spring, like February, March, and even April, when conditions really don't support seedling survival. So after about 3 or 4 years of getting too many samples in our lab And then there's been a recent USDA planting zone has moved up. And then there was the NOAA report, the National Oceanographic Atmospheric Administration. Anyways, they said La Nina's back, and that's the Pacific Ocean current that's going to bring us much drier conditions and much warmer conditions December through March of next year. And so all three of these things came together, and we decided that we needed to do a management alert and let everyone know, producers, planters, landowners, that we need to get our seedlings in the ground as soon as possible this summer. And that's why we put together the management alert.
Thank you, Dr. Enebak. Dr. Starkey, based on your experience and knowledge, when would you recommend a landowner in North Carolina plant their bare root seedlings?
John, we believe that planting bare root seedlings from the December to late February gives the seedlings time to begin new root growth, which is vitally important before warm weather begins and when the seedling requires water and nutrients to start growth. This, of course, is contingent upon the fact that site prep has already been completed in the appropriate time frame and that there is adequate soil moisture for planting.
Thank you. Dr. Nadel, when should a landowner complete their planting?
They should aim to complete all their planting by late February at the latest for optimal growth and survival.
Dr. Starkey, what are the benefits of planting early, say December or January, than planting later after Dr. Nadel's recommended months, say March or April?
John, I can think of at least 4 benefits to planting early. First of all, the seedling tops, the green part, is normally dormant. Number 2, early planting gets the seedlings in the ground before bad weather typically occurs. And here in the South, we can usually expect streams of bad weather to occur after Christmas. Number 3, early planting allows the seedlings to begin new root growth before that warm weather begins. And number 4 is probably the one that I consider the most important, in that early planted seedlings have the highest level of nutrition compared to late planted seedlings. And this is vital because new root growth and seedling establishment is highly correlated with seedling nutrition.
So Dr. Nadel, if March is the latest recommended month to plant, what should a landowner do if they cannot get their seedlings before then?
Well, if you can't unable to get your seedlings beforehand, you must realize that seedlings in March are likely no longer to be dormant, and therefore they do not store well. So because we're unable to store them well, we recommend to hot plant them, which means that the seedling has to be lifted from the nursery and planted within 72 hours for survival to be satisfactory. And this definitely helps with improving survival. But if you're going to be planting your seedlings late, planting quality is paramount, both for mechanical as well as hand planting. And specifically for hand planting techniques have to be done to perfection and 100% correctly to ensure the best growth and survival. You need to plant on sites that have their site prep completed in time and have adequate soil moisture. You don't want to plant, and you want to avoid planting on sites that have heavy soils or where the site prep has not been completed or the site is not ready for planting. And by doing that, if you plant late, you are improving the chances of receiving survival.
Thank you, Dr. Nadel. That's very encouraging. Dr. Starkey, is there another type of seedling or seedling stock type that a landowner could plant if they have to plant late, or let's say wanted to plant early?
John, there are two stock types, bare root and container seedlings. Sometimes container seedlings are called plug seedlings, but container seedlings are a very, very viable alternative anytime, but especially in early and late planting. What I like best about container seedlings is that 100% of the root system from the nursery goes to the field with the seedling, which is why container seedlings always begin new root growth much faster than bare root seedlings. And regardless of the stock type, you must be sure that site prep is completed in an appropriate time frame and there is adequate soil moisture.
Thanks, Dr. Starkey. Dr. Enebak, are there any timber companies planting, let's say in September and October in the Southeast, or more in my neck of the woods, say North Carolina and Virginia?
Yeah, there are a number of other organizations and companies, nurseries, landowners that are successfully planting containerized seedlings, probably starting in October and November. I don't know any in September, but certainly getting your seedlings in October and November and getting them in the ground, during the dormant season is very, very, very successful, and actually works better than planting them, let's say February, March, because actually your seedlings have all winter to become established. So I wish more people would get seedlings in the ground, before December than after December. It would save a lot of seedlings coming our way. John, back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Enebak. Dr. Starkey, how and why are they planting early?
Well, John, landowners are seeing better seedling survival and growth, as Dr. Enebak just referred to, when seedlings are planted earlier. In addition, landowners and consultant foresters are many times able to get planting crews for planting earlier, easier than they can later in the season. But as I mentioned several minutes ago, the other benefit to planting early is that the seedlings have a higher level of nutrition than these late planted seedlings. And then you're also, of course, getting the seedlings in the ground before bad weather begins. John?
Thank you, Dr. Starkey. Are there any benefits, let's say, to planting containerized seedlings versus bare root in those months of September and October?
Really, the benefits, like I said, anytime you can plant early, you're going to achieve that growth. When you're planting in March or even April, the only thing you could hope for is seedling survival. But when you plant early, then you've got seedling survival and first year performance. You've got an extra year's growth. And of course, as I said, planting earlier, the seedlings have a higher level of nutrition, and you avoid some of these weather problems that are seem to plague us here in the South.
Thank you, Dr. Starkey. It's certainly the takeaway of y'all are encouraging earlier rather than later, given our weather conditions. And I would encourage anyone listening this discussion to check you all out. I know y'all have a lot of information on your website, and for them to contact, whether it's a consultant, whether it's a nursery provider, et cetera, to make sure that they set themselves up for success. So I want to thank each of you for joining us today and taking time to field these questions and help our landowners out across the Southeast.
You're welcome.
Thank you, John.
Yep, our goal is to not see any dead seedlings this spring. We'd love that.
Well, thank y'all, gentlemen, again. And for those watching this, feel free to reach out to any of our panelists today, and they'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Take care.